Your neighbors will be the first ones to smile, and the first ones to turn on you. Not looters, not strangers, not gangs from across town. The real threat is the guy next door, the one who borrowed your ladder, waved at your kids, and now knows exactly where your back door creaks and where you keep your generator. Here's what the numbers say. 94% of Americans don't have 2 weeks of food. Less than 6% own a non-electric water filter. And according to the 2025 Grid Resilience Audit, just 9 coordinated attacks on key substations could shut down power to the entire U.S. for months. That's not a theory. That's federal fact, confirmed by DHS and the Department of Energy. Now, combine that with this. 68% of people say their plan in a crisis is to rely on neighbors, not to prepare, not to relocate, to come knocking on your door. So when the grid collapses and the system dies, they'll remember what you said in passing, that you stocked up a little, that you have a propane stove, that your light stayed on longer than theirs. At first, they'll ask nicely, then they'll trade, then they'll lie, then they'll take, and by the time you realize what's happening, it won't be a neighborhood anymore. It'll be a hunting ground. Here are the 10 signs your neighbors are preparing to turn violent when the grid goes down. 10. They'll turn everyday chores into recon, and you'll teach them how. In a blackout, mundane maintenance becomes battlefield intelligence, and your neighbors will watch every routine like it's a lecture. They observe your woodpile rotation, note your gutter cleaning cadence, track which trash bins you empty and when, then infer your resupply rhythm. Researchers studying post-disaster neighborhoods found visible repetitive tasks dramatically increase risk exposure because patterns are predictable and exploitable. Someone who sees you hauling 20 gallons of water 3 times a week doesn't see neighborly diligence. They see a supply chain map. They take notes mentally. Which shed has the least lock corrosion? Which window is easiest to prise open? Which family leaves for work at 7 a.m. and returns at 3 p.m.? This intelligence gathering is subtle. Smiles, casual questions, an offered tool, a compliment about your fence. Each interaction is a data point. If you've ever told a neighbor, "I fixed my generator last week while panting from the ladder," congratulations, you have announced a resource. Your defense starts now. Convert visible chores into camouflage. Perform noisy work under tarps. Rotate tasks unpredictably. Move fuel and water in opaque bins, and stagger maintenance times. Teach your household to feign clumsy incompetence during visits. Drop screws, struggle with a wrench, so casual observers downgrade your preparedness estimate. Use decoy caches, visible, empty containers that satisfy prying eyes, while genuine supplies stay hidden and compartmentalized. Most importantly, stop narrating. Silence about logistics is your first fortification. Every explanation is an invitation. When neighbors learn your schedule from your chores, they don't just know when to strike. They learn how. Don't hand them the manual. Assume they listen. Plan accordingly now. 9. They'll offer mutual aid meetings to normalize inventory checks. At first it will sound noble: coffee, a clipboard, a plan to help the housebound. Only later you realize those community sessions are a data pipeline. Organizers ask small questions that escalate. Medical needs, fuel status, food surplus, and compliance cascades because people want to be seen as helpful. Behavior scientists studying social conformity in disaster zones show that public disclosure increases with visible pressure. People admit more when everyone else appears candid. In several documented outages, neighborhood rosters generated during these meetings became operational lists used by opportunists to prioritize raids. Notice the shift from caregiving language to registry language. Who has what? Because language shapes action and bureaucratizes theft. The danger is subtle. Small contributions become precedents. One battery donated today requires recurring donations tomorrow. If you must attend, control your exposure. Speak in generalities. Offer time, skill, or labor instead of goods. Volunteer for roles that collect info centrally rather than handing over specifics about your home. Demand transparency. Insist minutes be published and that names of contributors be recorded in public view. Predators, avoid documented processes. Bring a trusted companion who can witness exchanges and deter coercion. Propose community caches in neutral locations rather than private lists tied to addresses. Ask organizers to reveal their own stores first. Reciprocity enforced outward discourages opportunists. Refuse to be ledgered. Remember, Mutual aid becomes mutual audit if you let it. Treat every meeting as a screening operation. Observe, limit disclosure, and never sign anything that itemizes private supplies. Stay in the circle psychologically but out of the inventory physically. Document every interaction quietly. Later those notes might protect you legally or reveal suspicious patterns publicly. 8. They'll weaponize health excuses and test your med supply tolerance. When water runs low and pharmacies shutter, health becomes the moral wedge that opens doors, and neighbors will use it. Watch for soft language. Coughs or fevers meant to trigger help. In crises, medical need is sacrosanct. People rush to aid, and that reflex is exploitable. During extended outages, both documented relief operations and opportunistic networks show a spike in requests for medication and medical tools, requests that often escalate to demands when time is scarce. One report from post-hurricane fieldwork showed neighbors who posed as caretakers obtained controlled supplies by presenting forged notes or creating scenes of urgency. Your instinct is to help. Your protocol must be to triage from the threshold. Do not hand over prescription bottles without verifying identity and need. Demand names, medical journals, or contact info for an off-site caregiver. Keep a small ritualized medical kit for public use. Expired dressings, donated bandages, decoy pills that satisfies immediate needs without bleeding your real stores. Train household members to ask pointed procedural questions. Onset, allergy history, last dose, and whether a formal prescription exists. Then insist on staging aid in view of others. If someone insists on entering for urgent care, call for a neighborly witness, or direct them to a designated community first aid node instead. Keep records of distributions. Medical claims are the single most effective cover for repeated access attempts, so document every exchange. By turning health into an audit, you deny predators plausible deniability. They can't claim charity if receipts exist. Protect your genuine meds by treating requests as intelligence operations, not pleas. Always verify through a second party before releasing any prescription or controlled supply. 7. They'll suddenly need help with repairs, but only to peek inside your home. It won't be a battering ram. It'll be a polite knock, a sheepish grin, and the words, "Hey, do you have a wrench? My sink's busted." Or maybe it's "I heard you were handy. Think you could take a quick look at our generator?" In a blackout economy, when tech is dead and trust is currency, this is one of the oldest tactics in the book. Extraction by invitation. You walk into their home, they walk into yours, and suddenly you've traded security for small-town neighborliness. What they really want isn't the fix, it's access. And that's when the reconnaissance begins. Collapse behavior studies out of Chile's 2010 earthquake zones revealed a 20% increase in repair-related social visits in the first 30 days of grid failure. But what researchers found? Over half of these weren't about help. They were about mapping resources. Neighbors took note of storage areas, backup systems, food smells, visible gear. Some even offered fake help just to plant listening devices or mark entrances. Sound paranoid? Think again. DHS's 2024 urban collapse drills flagged this exact scenario as a top-tier infiltration method. And you're most vulnerable when you think you're being helpful. Your move. Never let someone past your threshold without a plan. Offer tools from the porch, not from your shelves. Redirect all assistance to neutral ground. The driveway, the sidewalk, a shared backyard. Keep your interior locked, your layout unguessable, and your gear out of sight. Better yet, stage a messy, disorganized entry. It communicates scarcity, because the moment they see your solar charger, your backup heater, or your labeled totes of canned food, you're not just the guy who fixed a generator. You're the guy worth visiting again. Next time, they might not ask first. 6. They'll suddenly care about security, but only after scouting yours. First, you'll notice it one day. Your neighbor, the one who used to leave their garage door open for hours, now asking you how secure your back gate is. It'll sound innocent. "We're just checking who's got fences." Thinking about cameras, what are you using? But that's not curiosity. It's recon disguised as concern. Post-collapse, neighborly interest in security spikes not because they're protecting you, but because they're mapping vulnerabilities. In the 2023 Texas freeze, when communities lost power for 5 days, law enforcement reported over 38% of thefts were from homes that had been casually discussed in neighborhood groups beforehand. That's how it starts. Someone asking around. Your own neighbors collecting blueprints. You'll hear questions like, "Did you board up your basement windows?" Or, "How strong is your side gate?" What they're really asking is, "Where can we get in if we needed to?" When desperation hits, every unlocked door becomes a supply drop. A 2025 behavioral economics study from MIT found that perceived scarcity reduces empathy by over 70%, especially when the victim is perceived to be secure or withholding. So the more prepared you look, the more they justify targeting you. The fix: downplay. Make your home look run down from the outside, but fortified in ways they can't see. Hide trail cams inside fake birdhouses. Install double deadbolts behind standard locks. Cover security lights with plastic bags to look broken. Then rig them to remote triggers. Most importantly, never answer security questions directly. Say, "We just do our best," and change the subject. Because once your neighbors start asking about your locks, it's not for advice. It's because they're already wondering what's behind them. 5. They'll invite you over, just to take inventory. While you're distracted, think the dinner invitation during a blackout is about bonding? Think again. In a long-term grid-down scenario, that warm gesture is often a high-stakes scan, an intelligence op masquerading as hospitality. You bring over your half-wilted carrots, and while everyone's pretending to make blackout stew, your host is taking mental notes. Did you bring a metal spoon or a plastic one? Is your flashlight a $5 drugstore model or a $90 tactical one? Did you show up clean-shaven, well-fed, hydrated? That means water. That means soap. That means supplies. And suddenly, you're valuable. Or worse, you're a target. In Bosnia's urban sieges of the 90s, community meals became covert intel-gathering events. A well-placed question, "How did you keep your potatoes so fresh?" wasn't just curiosity. It was cataloging. The same is coming to your cul-de-sac. Once the grid collapses, data replaces dollars. Every item in your hand becomes a breadcrumb back to your stockpile. Even your kids might give it away. "We have more at home." And boom, you're flagged. In 2024, DHS simulations of prolonged blackouts revealed that within just 10 days, 41% of surveyed households had disclosed critical supply info through casual conversation. Your solution: go empty-handed. Say your stash spoiled. Claim you're scavenging daily. Apologize for not having anything decent. Carry broken gear, dull knives, dead batteries in your pocket. Give them nothing to log. Keep your children coached. No info, no pride, no casual mentions. Because that blackout dinner isn't about warmth. It's a heist. With cutlery. And if you show up shiny, strong, or too well prepared, they won't just remember you. They'll plan around you. Maybe even plan for you. 4. They'll start watching your routine, then mirror it to gain your trust. When desperation sets in, trust becomes the currency, and your neighbors know it. So what's the quickest way to build trust in a collapse? Mirroring. They'll start copying your body language, your habits, even your slang. Not because they like you, but because they want you to like them. Behavioral psychology calls it the chameleon effect, and in high-stress environments, it becomes a weapon. In 2025's Cascadia fault scenario simulations, FEMA analysts reported that survivors were far more likely to share resources with people who matched their energy, tone, or rhythm. In other words, fake similarity opens real doors. You start jogging at 7 a.m., suddenly they do too. You mention filtering rainwater with charcoal. They remember hearing the same tip. You wear earth tones, keep quiet, burn trash to mask food smells. They adopt the exact methods, not to survive with you, but to get close enough to bypass your defenses. And when trust is built on mimicry, it's paper thin. One question: where do you store your backup? And you might let it slip. Or worse, give them a tour. Your counter? Break your own patterns. Throw off your rhythm. If they match it again, you'll know. Mention a fake prep, a second generator that doesn't exist, and watch who asks about it a week later. Plant decoy info like breadcrumbs and see who follows. And above all, don't be flattered by the copycat. It's not admiration, it's targeting. Because when people are starving, they won't force their way in. Not if they can walk through the front door with a smile you taught them. 3. They'll weaponize groupthink, so you become the enemy of the block. By the time the blackout hits week 4, community identity becomes survival, and difference becomes threat. If you're the one house that still has soap or your kids aren't coughing like the others, you're not prepared. You're a problem, and your neighbors, they'll rally against you not out of cruelty but because you make them feel ashamed. In 2024, a study out of the University of Colorado's Disaster Psychology Lab found that 73% of collapse survivors projected blame laterally, not upward at failed institutions but sideways at those who weren't suffering equally. That's when the block vote starts. Not official, of course, but real. They'll whisper, "He's not helping. She has too much." You'll become a myth inside your own street, and the ones you thought were allies, they'll join in, just to not be outcast themselves. In Venezuela's collapse, entire neighborhoods exiled families with backup water tanks, not by force, but by erasing them socially until they cracked or fled. This isn't looting. It's moral quarantine. Your solution: blend hard. No generator hum. No smell of real meat. No visible soap. Practice poverty theater. Dry laundry on the line even if you don't need to. Stagger your posture when in public. Talk about hunger loudly. Reference fake supply runs that came up empty. You want to be just prepared enough to survive, but never prepared enough to stand out. Because in a groupthink collapse, visibility equals guilt. And once you're branded the one who didn't share, you'll be lucky if exclusion is the worst that happens. In group survival psychology, the herd doesn't protect the strong, it sacrifices them. 2. They'll pretend they're leaving, just to test. If you're vulnerable alone, one morning your neighbor casually mentions, "We might head out tomorrow. Check the old cabin. Nothing left here." They'll look exhausted, maybe even scared. And you'll believe them. That's the trap. Because in collapse psychology, false exits are one of the oldest plays in the book. Military SEER, survival, evasion, resistance, escape. Instructors teach that feigned withdrawal is often a setup to bait intel, or to test enemy response. That applies to urban collapse too. In war-torn Aleppo, looters would move out loudly just to watch which homes let their guard down after. And within hours, they came back, armed. Here's how it plays out. They tell you they're gone. You relax your perimeter. You sleep deeper. Maybe you even check their property to see if anything's left behind. And that's when they strike, because they never left. Or worse, they told someone else to check your response. A partner, a teenage son, a neighbor they trust more than you. This tactic showed up during Hurricane Maria recovery zones, where homes that lowered their defenses after hearing "we're evacuating" were targeted 87% more frequently, according to 2018 National Guard data. Your answer: never assume an exit is final. In collapse, movement shatters deception. If someone says they're leaving, act like it's bait. Fortify more. Go radio silent. Do not relax. Set traps, visual or otherwise. Place old shoes near your door. Make noise at intervals. Simulate occupancy with reflective material or automated sounds if possible. Because when someone broadcasts they're leaving, it's never for your benefit. It's to see what you'll do without them watching. And once you stop watching, that's when they come. 1. They'll turn on you and convince themselves it was justice. When it finally happens, it won't look like a riot. It'll look like justice. The people who once waved at you from their driveways will be standing on your porch, faces hollow, hands shaking, and they'll say it like they mean it. "We didn't have a choice." That's the final evolution of collapse psychology, when desperation crosses into moral inversion. It's not murder anymore, it's survival. In 2025, data from the Human Conflict Observatory found that after just 6 weeks of resource deprivation, 82% of survivors justified violent theft if they believed the victim had more than they needed. Read that again. When scarcity hits, morality becomes arithmetic, and in their math, your life is a fair trade for their next meal. You'll hear the excuses forming before the act. "He wouldn't share. She's hoarding. They're putting us all at risk." The human mind can rationalize anything when the hunger is deep enough. Rwanda, Venezuela, Ukraine's Holodomor. Every famine turns friends into judges and every judge into executioner. They'll make your fall sound civic, a redistribution, a rebalancing. In the 2019 Caracas blackouts, whole apartment buildings voted to seize residents' private food stores. And within days those same residents were beaten for resisting. That's what real collapse looks like. Moral collapse disguised as community action. Your only defense? Anonymity and absence. Don't become a name in their story. Don't let them know what you have, where you sleep, or when you cook. Black out everything. Cook only when wind masks the smell. Move at night. Cache your food in 3 locations, not 1. And above all, remember, once your neighbors convince themselves you're the villain, their violence becomes virtue. They won't feel guilt. They'll feel relief. Because when the grid's gone and the law's dead, they're not hunting evil. They're hunting inequality. And in their eyes, you are proof it still exists.